Remember to share the link for.
Yep. All right, you're on.
Welcome. We are live here for a Peach Pit episode for trying a new little format out for getting episodes up earlier and doing some surprise live content. So I imagine we don't have anybody watching yet, but here we are.
Kellen froze?
I'm still here.
He's still here.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Hello.
All right. So welcome everybody. This is our Peach Pit episode for week one review and week 2 preview. So we have some content to review from our events this last weekend for North Charleston for the first South Carolina district and Dalton for Peachtree, as well as then some week 2 previews for then Gwinnett and Peachtree and Lowland, if it's Lowland Richland or
what is that? Lower Richland.
Lower Richland. Okay, got that wrong. But for our South Carolina event, so we've had plenty of activity going on in both districts this first and second weekend. So lots of things to talk about. But before we get started, we have to make the usual disclaimer that any views or opinions shared on the show are solely that of the individual contributor and do not reflect the views of Peach Pit, any FRC team, First, Georgia First, South Carolina First, or any of their affiliates and sponsors. So the idea behind this show is to serve as an FRC talk show that focuses primarily on the Peachtree district and for South Carolina district, but we're going to be talking about a variety of topics, so don't be surprised if you see us drop some hot takes. Ultimately, we're hoping to provide some entertaining and engaging discussions. With that said, we'll go ahead and do some host introductions. My name is Kellen Hill. I'm a mentor for Team 10482, the Buzzbots from Athens, Georgia, as well as a Peachtree Planning Committee member for managing practice fields. And we have...
I am David Allred, a mentor for 4451 and several other teams in the area, a member of the South Carolina Planning Committee, and event volunteer.
I'm Brian Carlson. I'm with team number 6829 at Night Robotics. I'm an electrical mentor, and I'm currently a member of the Gulf Shore. That's where I'm camping right now doing this show.
He's our Peach Pit host on site assignment over in Alabama.
Yes.
But he's in an RV over there. He's doing the tough work.
There we go. There's my camera coming back in.
Yeah.
Working hard.
Yeah. So again, have a rotation of hosts throughout the season for who's available on any given week. But we also want to give a big shout out to Ian, our producer, who is a mentor for Team 34 over in Alabama, as well as a supporter then of Team 1833.
Yeah.
So now that we got all of that out of the way, we'll get into some week 1 reaction. Brian, you want to take us through Dalton?
Yes. So this past weekend was the Peachtree Dalton qualifier. The 2026 event had a vast number of returning teams, most notably the winning alliance from last year, Captain 6919 Commodores, 2974 Walton, and 103376 Plutonium Panthers. All were returned from the winning alliance. And from the finalists, we had Captain 6829 Ignite Robotics and 7676 Roll Bulldogs also returned. Heading into the weekend, there were high expectations that 2974 and 6919 would fight it out again for the top spot with a strong field behind them. Walton, winning 4 of the last district qualifiers and the finalists in the other, quickly put their flag in the ground as contenders for the 1 seed captain. It would take a good bot quickly built for week 1 and a strong programming team and drive team for the field to catch up. Commodore 6919, who also winning, basically said, hold my beer to Walton. They've won 5 of their past 6 qualifiers with a run finalist in the other. Starting out the day, 10:02, the circuit runners immediately took the challenge, and the event took off with the field chasing after the solid top tier. The theme of day 1 was execution. 9477 Lambda Robotics was leading the chase, going 7-1, while being followed by 7451 Avenger Robotics. Avenger Robotics, while scoring strong, had to face Walton twice and circuit runners once on the first day. Ignite Robotics struggled early and didn't perform well during the first few matches, dropping down as low as 11th. By midday, Ignite programmers had their shooting dialed in, and they started to climb their ranks, joining the chase with 40-26 Decatur Robotics and 67-72 Marist Manta Rays getting strong. They needed to make up ground in a curry. More on that later. Day 1 was all about execution. Day 2 was all about survival. Heading into day 2, it was 10:02, 29:74, 69:19, with 94:77, 68:29, 74:51, and 40:26 looking to make their case as the 4th spot. 69:19 and 29:74 must have angered the RNG gods, having their last 2 matches going head to head. 10:02 struggled in a match, and Walton went 0-2 against 69:19, even though playing well. At the end of quals, it was ranked Commodore 69:19 1, 10:02 Circuit Runners 2, 68:29 Ignite 3, 94:77 Lambda Robotics 4, 74:51 Avenger 5, 40:26 Decatur Robotics 6, and at 7th spot 29:78. Commodores picked Circuit Runners and 59:01 Defining Mongooses for the number 1 alliance. Ignite picked Walton and 69:05 the Raiders of the Ark Terabyte as the 2 alliance. 94:77 teamed up with 75:41 and 47:30 Avengers, while 40:26 picked up 88:66 Innovation Academy and 88:49 Storm Robotics, a pancake bot that was a swerve drive that could wreak havoc by feeding fuel to their alliance. In a stunning first 2 matches, the 8 seed took down the number 1 seed, as well as the 5th seed beating the 4 seed. This was going to be a playoffs where nothing was a given. If you didn't bring your A game, you risked being beat. Commodores and Circuit Runners fought their way through the lower bracket with a few bumpy matches. Walton and Ignite had strong matches, making it through the top bracket. Finals had Commodores and Circuit Runners going 2-0 against Ignite and Walton, who had their share of struggles in the finals. At the end of the day, Commodores, Circuit Runners, Walton, and Ignite mix and match those teams any way you want. Any of those could win. It was exciting playoffs and event. Back to 67-72 Marist Mana race. The human player is a strat. Marist has a human player named Gavin that wears a Steph Curry jersey. And yes, he's worth it. One match, he said he actually missed 4 fuel and auton. Any fuel he got was money. Gavin, if you're listening, I think Ignite can come up with some NIL money. Just saying. Sorry, Benji. The event winners were 69:19 Commodores, 10:02 Circuit Runners, 5900 Fighting Mongooses. Finalists 68:29 Night Robotics, 29:74 Walton Robotics, 69:05 Raiders of the Ark Terabyte. Winning impact was 74:51 Avenger, and Walton picked up the Engineering Inspiration. It was a great and exciting competition to attend.
Yeah, so yeah, some cool things there. I think there's, like you said, some of the household names that are used to being right there at the top, duking it out. But cool to see some fresher faces too for scrambling up the rankings, and for 10:02 and 94:77, some of those call outs just for the teams that are showing up and putting together some cool robots and making things interesting. So this is one of those event outcomes for mentioning to a couple people. Like, if you would have guessed any outcome similar to this, like when kickoff happened, to say this is how things would have played out, I think you would have a lot of surprise faces when somebody told you what actually happened. But it made for a fantastic event. I'd like to give we'll get into our South Carolina event here, but before, just even with just Dalton for watching some matches, a big round of applause to GDC on putting a good game together. This is a fun one to watch for the back and forth action for putting fuel in the hub is a lot of fun to watch. But Yeah,
So
we'll keep talking about. Or go ahead.
One thing I want to also relay: Jan came up to a lot of the teams and reiterated somehow how First has asked them to call matches. So if they have to come and get you and say, "Hey, you're late," that is official warning. If you do it a second time, it's a major, and those will carry into finals. So make sure you're on time. Make sure you if your bot isn't there, make sure somebody's there so you don't have to deal with that. If your bot's inspected, have somebody there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I think there were some curious eyes for the amount of, I forget if it was I think it was the Istanbul regional, if I'm not mistaken, but just the surprising amount of disqualifications that were happening early on, which I think was some combination of robots not having pass inspection for being ready and having somebody at the field, but also has to do with then like robot contact within the frame perimeter and causing damage, causing any amount of red cards, just for looking down the ranking sheet. That you'll see what 1002 had one, Walton had one, 6023 had a couple, 4730 had one, 5608 had one, 8849 had a couple. But just for the disqualifications, I'd be curious for Dalton how many of those were just didn't show up, or if those were all what those red cards or disqualifications wound up coming as a result of. But
so I will say this: if you go over the bump, your bumpers are going to be in the air. If there's another bot on the other side, be careful. I think if I recall what happened with Walton, I didn't see it, but I think I heard about it afterwards. As they came over, I think they hit a breaker or something, and they disabled a robot, right? So be careful when you're flying across there if you go over the bump, because you will be in the air. The other person won't be.
Yeah, got to keep your eye out for that intention. Yeah, whoever initiates the engagement, obviously if your bumper is over their bumper, then
yeah.
And
again, I don't know if it happened that way, but I believe it was a disablement. I'm not sure if they went over the bump, but that is a I know our driver likes to just yeet over that thing, so be careful. Oh yeah.
Speaking of fast and furious driving, David, what was your experience like at North Charleston this last weekend?
Yes, North Charleston. What an event. Teams from 4 states descended upon the North Charleston Athletic Center to go at it for the first week 1 event we've had in quite a while in South Carolina. So maybe we need to add North Carolina and Indiana now to our Peach Pit, because we're starting to attract teams from around our world here. Anyway, big congratulations to 3489 Category 5 for winning the Impact Award. That's they're like 5th in a row, I think, 5th, 6th in a row, 7th. Well, I'm sorry, they got 2 Impact in 23, 2 in 24, 2 in 25. So yeah, this will be 7.
Stacking them up.
So they've started their year off well and are heading to district champs. Burning Magnetos 342 won the Engineering Impact, and then 11398 the Shark Bites won the Rookie All-Star. And we are going to send a Rookie All-Star if one is selected at our district champs. That'll be going to Houston. So we've got our first contender, the Shark Bites. I love that name. So on to match play. As predicted last week, Link sailed through the competition to the number 1 rank. I think they missed one 100-point rank point. I think that was just a robot issue that one match. Otherwise, they soloed over 100 every match, and then got the supercharged rank point in one match, setting the qualifier high score of 388 points with G3 Robotics out of Georgia. Hint. So they set the high score at that time. So in the playoffs, they would go on to pick G3 Robotics, and 1293, the Pandamaniacs out of the Columbia area, and went right through the field. Had one little hiccup in one match, but ended up winning the event and set the event high score of 412 points in match 11 of the playoffs. Robots Garage 4451 captained the number 2 alliance to the finals with Burning Magnetos 342, bringing one of their best shooting robots I've seen in a while, and 361 the Gator Bots. So that's the Gator Bots' first finalist award. Of course, it's only their second year. Burning Magnetos is a string of silvers and are wanting to go gold. They did say they didn't lose to us, so they were okay with that part. But they still want to get that gold, and I think they have the robot to do it this year. Want to make a special point out to an all rookie alliance, the number 6 alliance, captained by 11254. First Ignition. I wanted to get a picture of the robot and just blur out the 11. But anyway, so and then 11424 to make it confusing, the Boa Constructors, and then 11398, the Shark Bites, our all-star. So they went all the way to match 12, putting up over 100 points in all but one of their matches, with human player play being a big part of their game. I did want to go back. Link's human player was a big part of their game. The other human players would feed him the balls in autonomous, and his goal was to shoot all 24. And he had a very high percentage in autonomous. And then the 2 Indiana teams, 8116 to Hatch Robotics, was the first pick of Alliance 3 with 6366, the Ramrods as the captain, and 8137 as the second bot, and their the Indiana B team or secondary team, 8430, the Hatch batch, was captain of the number 4 alliance with 3490 Viper Drive and 4533 Phoenix. Phoenix was the only team at the event that attempted a climb and climbed twice. I think it was twice L1. There was one other climber there that never, I don't think, I attempted to climb. But big story, of course, was watching Link put up just a bunch of points. They were at, early in the day, they were, I think, second in the EPA on StatBotics. I think they're still in the top 10. Their EPA doesn't really doesn't really show what they can do. I think their EPA is in like the upper 180s or something like that. They sell over 200 easy. Easy. Well, when I say easy, yeah, they sell over 220, 220, 230, 240, 250. They just
220, 221, whatever it takes.
Yeah, whatever it takes. They just kept going. I think 220 was their practice match, and they just went up from there. But when they're in a rhythm, they can put up a bunch of points. So what we did in the match 11, when we went up against them in match 11, I think we lost by just 200 points. Not bad. So I think we had 215 and they had 415, or they had that 412, that event, a match high. And then we thought we'd spring defense on them in the finals. Was able to hold them down a little bit, on the scoring output. Of course, it didn't swing the ultimate, event results, but we did want to at least make it a little more interesting, because I believe that as this game goes on, defense will be a big part. I don't know if that really played a role in your event as much, but it's definitely going to play a role.
Yeah. I think as the bots evolve and teams become more capable, they're going to have that ability to be able to switch around roles. On a week 1, it was the standard cycling game. But that's not going to last long.
Yeah, I think teams are going to start specializing in more and more, whether that's they figure out, all right, this is some changes we need to make to be a little bit better scoring, or to say like, all right, what's our real calling here? Is it to be a feeder bot? Are we just feeding our human player the entire time? Are we just pushing balls or fuel back to our home zone? That there's a lot of choices to make there. But I imagine we're going to see it's a lot of fun to watch those strategies advance as we see the season go on, especially as you get if it's deeper events for the amount of teams that'll be, what teams will be competing, just to see, all right, what happens if you have two alliances show up against each other that have 4 really strong bots facing off. That's again where it's just the most fun to watch that score fluctuate back and forth as the match goes on, to see, all right, who can keep it up the longest and last to the end of the match. But it's a lot of fun to watch. I'm excited for this game, or the rest of the season.
Yeah, it was. It's a different game because you're like, hey, we are up, right? And we saw this in a few matches, like, hey, we're up by 30, right? And then you get 2 bump bots that have massive hoppers, and you're like, 7 seconds later, you're down by 80, right? Because they go active. It's like, whoa,
Yeah,
I thought we were up, right? and so,
yeah, defense has to be ready if you are playing it, or you're playing against one of those teams in quals, to say, all right, I know you're just gonna go to town scoring fuel if I don't send anybody over there, but if I send somebody over there, are you capable of, if it's auto aim with a turret, or do you have corrective action? But it seemed like some teams figured that out as matches went on, of, all right, we can really hamstring this particular team we're playing against, because I think 9477 was kind of in this case that their shooter's really low on the front side of the robot, but they have a bit of a spraying shot, but that they have a huge hopper, which and amazing intake that they can fill up like that. But if they get harassed during that shooting period, and this goes for many other teams, but that they can miss a lot of those shots. So you'll see a lot of these teams figure out how to better play against defense, but you'll also see better defense getting played, which is only going to make, again, this game more interesting as the season goes.
And to note, sorry, John, Brown, and counter defense will come into play.
Yes.
So in our last the battles 3, we were again defending Link in the front court, and then G3 came over to counter defend us because Link had a load to shoot, and so G3 was kind of done. So they come over, counter defend us, and then Link finishes it off to get the final margin. I mean, they were still in the lead, but that final margin was made by a counter defensive move from G3. Of course, veteran, smart team like that's going to start doing that. So I think, as this goes on, coordination to get that defender off of you with picks or whatever, especially the tall robots coming over the bump. You're going to need a pick assist to get that robot over the bump. A good defender can keep somebody out. A tall one, not a short one, but a tall one.
And that's where I think you'll see that, like you were saying, for picks and things, of establishing a playbook that whoever you are playing with during quals, that some of those things are too complicated to pull off, but that in elims it's any easier. But to have a good playbook and being able to easily explain to other teams how those things work, of just being able to implement any of those paired up strategies of, all right, let me set a pick for you, that this is where I want you to be when, or if you see me struggling, this is how I want you to help. Of being able to easily explain those moves to other teams of what you're trying to do, is only going to help teams in quals. But this is what I said going in, and is always the case for week 1. You might not have the best robot at the event, but if you know how to play the game, that you're going to have such an advantage compared to the field of, like if it's sweeping fuel from the midfield, if it's setting picks like that, or knowing when defense comes, of how to scrub it off. But yeah, having that know-how, that game know-how is going to be such an advantage as the season goes on, instead of just having the best robot. That you have to know how to drive it, put it where it needs to be at the right time, have fuel stocked up at the right times, that as you're shooting, your the fuel you're scoring is then flowing to the other side of the field. How do you get that back to your side of the field as best you can? But it's a lot of fun then watching matches from other areas to see what that 1678 and I'm blanking on their alliance partner, but for putting up over 700 points. But these are teams that obviously have been doing this a while and are the household names of FRC, but that
Was it control?
Watching and picking apart how they're coming up with these match strategies. You're gonna watch one of those matches and see that there's incredibly low amounts of wasted time during the match. That their drivers are so practiced that they know, all right, if something goes wrong or if this happens, that this is my action. That they're coming in early events with that mental conception of how to play the game. So whether your program's at that point or anywhere even close to it is one thing, but what you can always do is you can always start learning wherever you're at. So this is where we're always huge fans or proponents of getting out there and studying match footage, not only for PCH in South Carolina, but getting out there and seeing what successful strategies are implemented in other regions around the world.
It's fun to watch because different levels of play that you can play and contribute, right? So most of our kit bots, once they got a rhythm going, they were shooting some, they were pushing fuel, feeding by pushing, and they never forgot the human players. A lot of them kept pushing it right down to the human players and then kept them going.
Mm-hmm.
There were some matches right at the end where the kit bots are shooting and the humans are shooting, and there's like a couple of points difference, and the audience is just going nuts. It doesn't matter if it's 700 or 100. The audience was going absolutely crazy, wondering who was going to, make that one last shot that could swing the match.
Yeah,
There's I think a lot of excitement there as well for like the end of autonomous, of just seeing teams sinking shots and just seeing the number tick back and forth, of just like, all right, who's gonna win autonomous?
It's wild. The whole game is wild. Because some autonomous modes were won by like one ball, and that was probably the human player, right?
Yep.
A couple things of note. Playing defense. If you want to actually play defense, other than just trying to feed or steal, watch some matches. Right. This year, 8849 was doing great in feeding. Last year it was GSMST. There, nobody thought there was defense. You can play defense if you look for it. Along with defense, when you're trying to pick out who you're trying to play D against, there are basically two types of mechanisms for intake. You got the people that fold out and the people that slide out. Those people that sort of fold out, when they pull that in, they have a lot less space in their hopper at that point, right? So sort of look at what you're going to do, how you're going to play that, along with defense. About driving. And I've seen this at our event. I think, David, you had it at your event. Drivers, you have to communicate. At both events, we had a bot beached on the center side of the bump. And if you're not in that driver station right there, we were off on the other side. So we're just trying to book around. You can't see what's there. Communicate. Secondly, don't try going over the bump to dislodge them. Definitely come from the backside and hit them off, because you'll just end up beaching both of you.
You sound like you're talking from experience, Brian. I will say that was a real tragedy. That was one of the matches I did catch. In talking with any friends while watching, I said, "All right, Walton's beached." 15 seconds later, Walton's still beached. 15 seconds later, what? Walton is still beached.
Right.
And then I think 5 seconds later, Walton and Ignite are beached.
Yeah. It was definitely an interesting match.
We definitely can get beached on the bump, but if you're having fun, you can surf in the neutral zone.
Right.
We had a lot of teams surfing on the balls too. They were like traveling slowly across, and some teams, could get like one surf module down and like spin off.
Yeah. It's awesome when there's enough fuel that you keep surfing for like 10 or 15 feet.
So
I like to say,
new drivers, do not go out over the bump if you can't see that there's fuel on the ground. Do not.
So I like to say, experience is learning from your mistakes. Wisdom is learned from somebody else's mistakes. Please take wisdom from the show and don't do that.
Yeah, don't. Yeah. So if you can go to the tunnel, that's a safer route. Even though I saw some people, like some of the kit bots, when they're trying to push the fuel, the balls will get stuck in the intake, lifting the robot up a little bit, and I saw a couple of them nick the underside of the tunnel. So it's still hazardous even if you're on the carpet.
Right. And as a 3-bot, if you're out there trying to feed to the other side or pass, right? If you know you have one of your bots getting ready to come over, clear the fuel away from that that bump so they can get over more easily. It'll be faster and less risky.
Yeah, I think it's also like doing sweeps in particular locations. I think same thing happened last year on like the backside of the reef of just having a blind spot of if you're trying to score somewhere and it's not working, of sweeping to get any coral that's on the floor and out of the way. But the blind spot right behind the hub, you know there's fuel there. Just sweep and clear it out for your team to then be able to better see it and intake it. But I guess any other notes for week one? I guess for ranking, I don't. Did Supercharge occur at all at South Carolina for any of those link matches?
Yeah, one did. Yeah, with the G3, they put up 388 points.
Okay, but yeah, it didn't seem to appear at Dalton. I'm trying to recall what the high score was, if that one happened.
Like 290. It was like in the 290s, I think.
Yeah, see, 263 for 275 was in finals. Then I forget if there's anything higher in quals, but yeah. Ranking is just shoot. There's I think 2 robots were climbing at Dalton, but not enough to pair up and get anywhere close to ranking point. So we'll see if that changes it all through the season. But seems like a bit of a backwards game from like 2017, where fuel was very, very low on the totem pole for just score gears and climb, and you're doing really well. In this game, if you got to shoot and don't worry about climbing, and you're going to rank really well. So it looked like, at least at Dalton, just for
we had 40 RPs for the energized for 32%. So, and that's only going to get higher.
Yep, and then it looked like Link got up to 45 RPs, I think, with 4451 coming in second at 39. That they had a bit of a separation there, whereas at Dalton you had a 40, 39, and 37 kind of right there at the top.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was fun to watch the end of the matches for Dalton, of just how much change up was happening there at the top of the rankings, right towards the end. But yeah, that ranking is, again, just shoot. Make sure you're locking up that 100 point RP as much as you can. Obviously, it's easy to say that, but the mechanics of being as consistent as you possibly can, go out, wash, rinse, and repeat, do the same thing over and over again. Is come with a plan, execute plan, walk away, and knowing you did your thing. But I was explaining this to our BuzzBots driver of stay calm under fire. There's no sense in getting overreacting when something goes wrong. Anticipate as much as you can. All right, when this goes wrong, here's what we do. But that all of those things add up to then being serving you well in that ranking game. But again, shoot all the fuel you can. That's the name of the game.
The other thing I'll point out is drivers. Defense is coming either in the midfield or maybe in your alliance zone. Don't be predictable, right? So if you go over early and you sit in a spot for 3 or 4 seconds, people are going to know where you're going to shoot from, right? So try to time it where when you stop, you shoot. Don't just sit and wait. Come over at the last second and sort of make sure they don't know where you're going to be. If you do that, then they have to react to you instead of understanding what you do and being there first.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it seems like a big deal as well for knowing how to drive your robot, depending on the type of robot it is. If you have an over-the-bumper intake, or if you have anything else hanging out of your frame perimeter, is be as cautious as you can about how you're interacting with other robots for all those penalties that can stack up pretty quick. But
Hey, by the way, last week I was asked, are we prepared to bend our hopper back? Did not. It got bent a little bit, but it did not really get bent at all. We had a little damage offside. We had to bend it back in, but yeah, it held up. So there you go. But we do have a polycarb one ready to go.
Well, I bet my polycarb ones are there. Well, we had some aluminum angle in the corner, so that's what actually bent.
Yep.
If you hit it hard enough, we can bend it. Don't challenge the drop game.
all right. Well, with that said, David, you want to take us into what week 2 looks like over in South Carolina?
Yes, another 28-team event with 4 states descending on Lower Richland High School in the Columbia, South Carolina area for the Richland District event. From Indiana, we have 5484 Career Academy Robotics Wolfpack. This is actually their second play. They were in the number 8 Alliance at a district event I cannot pronounce, so I'm not going to even try. And then we've got 2 teams coming from North Carolina, 6004 FX Robotics and 9005 Avian Robotics. And Avian also played in week 1 at the Carabas event. I call it Carabas event in North Carolina. And then coming from Georgia, 9477 Lambda, who was also played last week and was the 3rd seed captain. Is that correct? Sounds right.
Yes.
And sporting was it a tall dumper they were sporting?
I think so. Unfortunately, day 1, I had to work all day, so I didn't get a chance to watch any matches on day 1.
Yeah. So they're probably going to be we've got 3 of the 4 teams from outer state are already on their second event, and then we've got 4 teams, 4 South Carolina teams that'll be their second event. The 3976 Electric Hornets. 4083, the legendary Iron Wolverines, 4451 Robots Garage, and our sister team 4864 Innovation Station, second event. So punishment all the way around. We also have 5 new rookie teams that'll be playing. So I'm thinking that we'll probably have in the range of 8-ish kit bots there. Again, we had a whole alliance of 100% kit bots, so they can play the game. Coming out newly this week are several contenders. I'm just going to call them contenders because it's all like right there and they're too hard to say without seeing these robots. So we've got 281, the Green Villains, 343 Metal in Motion, 1102 Making Magic, 1287 Assault, 2815 Blue Devil Mechanics, 4451 with their second event. And then 8575 the Due West. I have seen Due West 343 and a part of 281's robot a couple weeks back, and looks like they're going to be ready to go. So I'm assuming those other teams will be ready to go. I'm especially interested in what 1287 will be bringing. They've been bringing really good robots last several years. As far as ward contenders go, 2815 and 8575 are contenders with possibly some other teams in the mix for the major awards. Rookie All Stars, can't predict that, so we'll just have to see. I will be coaching 2 teams besides. We'll be working with my own team. I'll be working with 2 teams there, the Cybots out of Chesney and a new rookie team out of the Daniel Morgan Technology Career Center in Spartanburg. So I'll be a busy guy.
Yeah, sounds like fun. Let's see. You imagine gameplay continues as it did kind of for week 1. I guess, you get a little bit of advancement, I guess, bonus advancement just for those, like you said, those teams that are playing for the second time, kind of implementing
Right.
some of those things they saw right away.
Right. So, So teams like Landon and ourselves will be, playing our. Hopefully, we're on the worked out through most of the kinks or whatever, and we'll be on the rise still. The other teams that I mentioned, they'll be working out the kinks, and I think by playoffs, so rankings might be all mixed up, and then any combination of these teams might be able to take home this banner. This is not like one thing's going to say, oh, that one team, just even because they have experience, doesn't make it a real winner. So I have no surefire finalists here or winners. I think it's any combination of the teams I mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
It really will depend on rankings and a little bit of luck of the draw. And
that seemed to be the case for Dalton. It was a crowded field for a handful of robots that could put up a decent amount of fuel. That they were all kind of duking it out based on luck of the qual schedule to see who wound up on top. But
exactly, I'm looking forward to it. A little tired, but
yeah. That's the fun of back-to-backs is the
sleep is for all season.
That and the amount of complaints about week one kind of overlapping on top of the time change did not bode well for some.
Week one time change and losing a couple of weeks to snow or whatever is like, oh geez.
I don't have time change. I went to Alabama. I got it back.
It'll catch you eventually, Brian.
Yeah, but at least I was smart enough not to do a competition and time change the same weekend. Yeah, it's a strategy.
Yeah, it's a strategy.
Well, I will be at Gwinnett this upcoming weekend. I'm looking forward to it. I'll be at the practice field manning that, but I'm looking forward to seeing some of the teams for the Buzzbots hitting the field for the first time. Bean hitting the robot for the first time for some of the teams I'm linked to, but also excited to see a pile of other exciting contenders. But what we do have, I guess, in this defending champs, looks like all three teams would be returning for 1771, 1833, and I believe 4468 is also showing up. Looks to be the case. But those would be our returning champs for defending. We then have a pile of robots to look out for just some of the heavy hitters. I think this is one of our if not our deepest event, is one of the. Yeah, I think it has to be for the.
It's got to be the outside DCMP. This is probably the toughest.
Yeah, so curious to see what this event will look like, given that it's a week 2 event. Just how ready teams are for it. Just to see what kind of glimpse of later on in the season this might provide us. But it's exciting to then see 1771's the obvious kind of the terror of the of the district for several years now, just making it hard for anybody to keep up. You have then 1683, I think, is next up on my kind of EPA numbers over the last couple of years. You then have 1833 hot on the heels. 1261 is another one of those contenders.
All of those teams are at this one event?
Yes.
Oh,
yeah. We then have 6340 for the Manatees. 1648 showing up for their second event, already putting on a impressive showing.
They're ready to play.
This is going to be a fun one. For again, luck of the draw and quals is going to be a big deal. Who you're playing against. I know sometimes you play against the same team 4 times and never get to play with them, and the rankings only bash you down. But I don't mind those cases as long as the right teams are in the position to make picks that they're going to see what you're capable of and get you picked where you should be. But yeah, I'd imagine we wind up getting some supercharges for eclipsing that 360 number. I don't think it's going to happen incredibly routinely. Obviously, it's going to pop up any more routinely if you're going to be we'll see how consistent 1771 is out of the gates. I've heard we'll see if they get anywhere close to that 9483 kind of game plan. It sounds like they have a turret kind of soft set to the corner of the robot for a lower robot that can go under the trench. But in an early showing at the DE field, seems to have already put on a very impressive performance there, just scoring fuel from wherever they're at. So I'd not hesitate one bit putting them down as the clear favorite.
Well, if they have shoot on the move, they can get up in a couple hundred.
Exactly. That's where I mentioned the 9483
they can
from
get in a couple
Turkey.
hundred ball range with the shoot on the move, because the floor is your hopper, right?
Exactly. So if they're pulling that off, I imagine again those supercharges are going to follow for any of those teams that are putting up those routine performances of that capacity, particularly if then there's that depth of experience for other teams at the event, that you're going to see some more of those superchargers pop up. Maybe not incredibly routinely yet, but we'll see if some other robots put up that similar type of performance. I'm excited for what I've seen from 1833 so far. They are pouring in fuel. I think they've got some modifications in mind already, but are just cranking out the balls per second numbers, as well as trying to maximize their hopper size. Of just being able to, if they're holding 60 fuel, of being able to unload it in 3 or 4 seconds, just for as fast as that's going to happen. I'm excited for it, for being it's fun to have both archetypes there for that turret bot as well as a high flow dumper. We'll see what that winds up looking like for an 1833 performance. I think 1683 was also at a DE field recently for. I'd be curious how they wind up performing, knowing that they've been one of the top bots in the district the last couple of years. 1648 already having an impressive showing. I'm curious if what they'll have time to improve on between their South Carolina event and week 2, but I'd expect them to be one of the contenders. But yeah, 6340 has been making some great robots the last couple of years. Let's see who else. Yeah, 1261. If I'm not mistaken, I believe they wound up with a turret. From the notes I've heard through the grapevine. Let's see, 5293 is another one. Coworker winds up mentoring them, so I'll give them a call out for being in that upper echelon of EPA numbers going into this event, but should put on a good performance. It sounds like they made a good call for doing a kind of drum shooter, if I'm not mistaken, or at least a couple wide. More of a dumper robot than a turret. So yeah, looking to see how those archetypes wind up playing out, just because I imagine turrets are going to get better as the season goes on for taking any more advantage of the shoot on the move kind of moves, whereas dumpers are just going to have to really figure out that pace of play to like intake, park, shoot as fast as you can, because if we learned anything from week 1, if you're trying to sit there and take 10 seconds to unload a large hopper, you're going to get smothered by defense, and it's going to be a hard time later in the day on Saturday to keep putting up those numbers, especially when defense is coming your way. But
yeah,
I'm excited for my BuzzBots showing up for this event. We're going to try keeping our Peachtree. We have never not been an alliance captain at a Peachtree district event. Obviously, we're a second-year team, but to have shown up to three Peachtree district event or Peachtree events last year and walked away as captains at all 3,
wow,
was pretty awesome. But we don't have the climbing in our pocket as we did last year to make that ranking game happen. So we are all about the fuel this time for a kitbot modified that can hold hopefully 30 or 40 fuel in the hopper. But we've still got a lot of refinement to go. Working on getting some more driver practice and things together. But yeah, hope to be up there. Other robots I'm excited to see are 3318 and 7538. Some of those robots last year that were very specialized in what they did, for if it was defense or scoring L1 at an incredible clip for 3318. But excited to see what decision making is going on over there. We also have, I think, 5109s up there for some of those EPA numbers. But yeah, this is going to be an exciting event. Keep an eye on, again, those quals matchups to see who's duking it out against who and how that affects those ranking games to who's in the position to pick who. It's going to be a lot of fun, and not not to even mention then what we're expecting for elims, that you might wind up with 3 or 4 really good alliances for two powerful robots, and whoever they get on the backside of the draft should result in some high powered alliances come playoffs.
Yeah, I also am eager to see 33-18 at Gwinnett. This game, if you can drive well and drive with a purpose, right? You can be a very effective cleanup bot, right? Because you could push stuff through that trench, and you could push 10 or 15 through that trench easy. And you do that a couple times, and you're contributing as much as one cycle of one of those larger bots. And if you look at Dalton, some of the matches, when it starts getting scarce out there, it's hard for those teams to score against you because they don't have fuel. And so being able to push as much as you can to your side can be very valuable, regardless if you have a shooter or not.
Yep. But yeah. I think wherever you're picking in that alliance selection process, looking for the drivers that know how to put the robot in the right spot at the right time is going to be crucial on whether it's your first robot you're trying to pick, of knowing how to play offense in a back and forth sharing the field on who's in taking where, who's shooting where, or if you need to divert and play defense as David's team did this last weekend for throwing out a wild card. But especially for third bots, if you're looking between a robot that might be able to shoot a few fuel, or a robot that can herd 100 fuel over to your side throughout the course of the match, there's some pretty easy choices there to say that that's going to have a bigger impact on our alliance putting up some bigger scores. So yeah, very curious to see what the kind of advances we see in those strategies as teams figure out more and more, as we start again already this early in the season, start seeing some teams with an event under the belt, how they take advantage of that. But lots to be excited for.
And the other thing is, starting week 2, the Auton Wars begin, right? Getting to that middle first and knowing where you go, where everybody else goes, and with the teams that we have at Gwinnett, I expect to see some very interesting choices. How you pick your Auton.
Just go for it. See what.
we were talking about that particularly for how BuzzBots were planning around things, that we had any intention of like, okay, what's the easiest thing we can do for Auton and putting up more than just the 8 preloads we have, and with a relatively simple robot. I have a camera here to try getting on the robot, but I don't think it's going to be at all in the game plan for Gwinnett. But if we don't have vision and we're just doing path planning, like what's the easiest, what's the lowest hanging fruit that we had kind of identified as the outpost. But looking at week 1, for as effective as human players were, that in my mind, let the human players do the human player thing and shoot those fuel. That any concern on my side is we're then heading out to the middle of the field to try getting any fuel, but we don't have vision. So it's all right, we're going to do our path plan, but if the drivers have to then recognize, all right, if we get hit, you need to hit a stop as soon as you can.
Yeah. So I'll give you a tip. If you go in and you know you're going to be outscored in Auton, drive against the back of your hub, because they're going to be dumping more in on their side, coming to your side than you are putting on their side. And whoever's scoring more, the other side's going to have.
That's a good point. They do pile up right behind the hubs. My draft team said that was a little hard to see. You could kind of squat down and look through the bottom of it, but it was still kind of hard to see. And
this was, I think, also one of those week 0 modifications they made on the filters, that for how the fuel then comes out and gets redistributed on the field, is that they took away a couple of the outside filters that most of the fuel
it just kind of dumps in the middle and then just spreads out.
Yeah, so there were 4 lanes coming out. I think 2 went kind of straight down on the field. The outer 2 then had these deflector plates but they were doing like slow-mo video during week 0 and noticing that as the fuel were coming down those, that it would kind of do an extra bounce and slow things down on the, but that it also wouldn't distribute on the field as they were looking for. So they had removed those panels, and I think that adds to the effect of most of that fuel gathering right behind that hub. But
yeah, the fuel tends to gather, along the edges. It does stay out in the middle of the neutral zone relatively good. In the alliance zone, when you're feeding, it all just goes against the back wall, the corners. It just ends up against the back wall, and a lot of teams are still having issues seeing that. So that's the trick, is to be able to spot the fact that you have a bunch of fuel against your alliance station wall.
Yeah, it is.
A lot of
that,
teams
and I think
that
the other one,
got to get more.
The other collection spot is like right in where the climber is at.
Yeah, there's a bunch under that tower usually.
Some robots have the right dimensions of just sweeping through there with their intake. Others, like I think buzzbots, are too wide to kind of go through in the right orientation, so we'd have to do a sweep through just to knock them out and then intake them. But
yeah, you have 39 inches. If you're narrower than 39 inches, you can fit.
We're like right at.
yeah.
And well, including bumpers, I think we're over that. So
yeah, and support bar is beneath. Yeah, the support bar is beneath the max height, or above the max height.
Okay, well, we're approaching the top of the hour.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think there's any more to look. Again, all the advice is to go out and watch, absorb as much as you can from those strategies out there. Again, for both of our districts as well as other regions, to take notes on what the more advanced version of this game is going to play like, for any deeper events that have gone on already. So yes, keep taking notes and keep learning. And we're
look where the balls pile up. Don't go surfing.
Yeah.
And well, unless you want to, it's kind of fun to watch these. So don't go surfing, and learn those periods, because you got to get a good game flow. So people that are well practiced have had a good game flow. People that didn't have practice, you could tell.
Yeah.
And they didn't have a good game flow to get right in line, ready to shoot.
Right. And if you couple things I would point out is, if you're doing one cycle and you can't get a second cycle, try working on how can you get a second cycle, even if you have to stop a little early so you can try to get some more fuel. Because if you run out of time and it's like 6 seconds left, you're kind of right. The other thing is on passing, right? So a lot of teams would fill up fuel, get a full hopper. They would then pass them to their offensive zone, right, to their side, and they would get some more. And oftentimes they didn't get back to full. So if you're going to shoot fuel, make sure you get more. Or if you can't, or you're not sure, just push stuff to the trench.
Yeah, simplify your game plan and make sure that you're full when you're ready to shoot at the beginning of your. I saw lots of people, including ourselves, get caught short where we weren't quite full when it was the period started. We came back like a half a hopper. Although we had fed a lot, we didn't leave enough time to collect the full and get back and shoot. So, you got to work on that. You got to work on rhythm.
Yep, I saw that from top teams and bottom teams, right? This is not the top teams. Everybody does this, right?
It's everybody that's just not practiced the flow yet. So simplify your flow, and please do not go over the bump if you can't see the other side.
Yeah. Any other fun comment is the teams that were keen enough to use that 10-second window right after Auton to sneak in a bonus cycle. But
because everything that comes through auto is right by the hub. Just go do a sweep. You'll see most teams would just go over the bump, do a sweep, and come right back and bam. And whatever they got, it doesn't matter. Don't worry about hopper. You got 10 seconds, so go and come back and shoot what you got. If it was 10 balls, fine. If it was 30, great.
Yep. Well,
anyway,
I think we're right at 1 hour here. Go us. It doesn't happen too often that we
Go us.
we make time. But we look forward to seeing you next week at either Gwinnett or you said Lower Richland.
Lower Richland.
Hey, you got it right.
Yes, you did.
Looking forward to seeing all the teams out at these events and seeing some more of this game as it develops. But we'll see you out there, and we'll see you next week on Peach Pit.
Bye-bye.
All right, have a good one, y'all.